Very welcome.
Hi, everyone.
And you are the client. Yeah, we can see it. Perfect.
Hi, everyone. Once again, my name is Ali, working with UNA Tanzania. At UNA Tanzania, we are doing a lot of things in various programs from sustainable development, climate change, youth, and all of that. Today we'll be having a climate webinar whereby we'll be seeing the collaboration with UNA Sweden, which has been a very fruitful collaboration between the two organizations for quite some time. So we'll dive into the work that we're doing as UNA Tanzania and look onto that. So yes, this is a very beautiful picture of the UNA Sweden visit to Tanzania this year, whereby we were discussing various issues regarding the two organizations, and that is Eva and Paul, all the way from Sweden. We hosted them into our offices, and my presentation will be having this 7 parts. Shortly, I'll pass you through that, through about UNA Tanzania, our vision and mission, the partnership that we have with UNA Sweden, and the work that we're doing into climate change. So I'd like to speak a bit in terms of UNA Tanzania. As you can see, we are, I hope you can see very well. I was just adjusting a bit on my side. So we are among the oldest organization in the country, with a purpose to advance sustainable development and uphold the UN Charter's principle in the country. So UNA Tanzania, we have also the youth wing, and whereby we have more than 30 senior government position, but also we are hosting the Tanzania Sustainable Development Platform, which has more than 500 members, but also we have our youth wing, which has more than 40,000 members. And these members are through the UN clubs and chapters, where the clubs are in secondary schools, but also the chapters are in universities. The vision of UNA Tanzania, sustainable and just Tanzania society where no one is left behind. And our mission is to mobilize for action and promote inclusiveness, accountability, and ensure that no one is left behind in the implementation and achievement of sustainable development in the country. And I'd like to speak more bits onto the partnership that we had with Sweden across the year, which had a series of phases. From phase 1, whereby it was looking into the effective, inclusive local implementation of SDGs with adherence to the principles of human rights and gender equality. And now the second phase that we are in, enhance influence of CSOs and youth effective implementation and monitoring of SDGs, but also we had the Right Way Forward project, in which was looking into climate change. Going now a bit, I spoke a bit earlier in terms of the effect of climate change in Tanzania, but again, some of these are the effect of climate change in Tanzania. This is a picture that has been taken in Dodoma, Mpwapwa. It's a very dry, it's a semi-arid area whereby there is a prolonged drought, but also it's a very bare land whereby people from Mpwapwa are really much affected by climate change. So some of the effect of climate change in Tanzania, including agriculture and food security. We have seen water resources scarcity, health issues, but also ecosystems and biodiversity issues, whereby there is loss of habitat, coral bleaching, and declining wildlife. As you can see, and Tanzania is a very diverse country with rich in nature, but also in terms of biodiversity. But through climate change, we are seeing that all of these are declining. But also the coastal area, we have the Indian Ocean, in which we can see that on the coast area there is a rise in sea level, erosion, but also there are reduced fish stocks. But also at large, in terms of the economic loss, we are seeing that in the future there'll be reduced tourism as Mountain Kilimanjaro is really melting, but also a lot of disasters that have been caused by climate change are really affecting us economically, but also in terms of the infrastructure damage that has been caused by climate change. Coming to the social and energy impact, you can see also community displacement, gender equality, and also reduced hydropower. These are some of the effects of climate change in the country. And now I'd like to speak now to the work that we had with UNA Sweden across the year. So we had the Right Way program, in which it was taking place in Pemba and Zanzibar. Zanzibar is a very beautiful island in Tanzania, and Zanzibar has two smaller islands that makes up Zanzibar, which is Pemba and Unguja. And you can see that through the Right Way Forward, we are building the capacity of people through empowering them in terms of the human rights, but knowing the rights in terms of holding the rights holders accountable. And through the program of the Right Way Forward, there were key activities that were conducted. We restored more than 200 hectares of mangrove forests, but also trained more than 20 and supported 10 CBOs, the community-based organization, in ecosystem-based adaptation. But also another key activity that took place was the establishment of the 10 school environmental clubs, in which young people, young generation are taking part in climate action into these clubs. But also we promoted financial inclusion to more than 1,000 women through alternative income activities. As you can see, many are cutting down trees for charcoal and other issues, but now by promoting them and giving them trainings in terms of diversifying their economic activities, we have been able to promote the financial inclusion to all of these women. We faced some challenges. Again, there was a lot of mangrove deforestation across the coast area, sand destruction, saltwater intrusion as the rising sea level caused the salt water to come into the arable land of farmers. So it was really a challenge also, but also issues around gender equality, as Pemba is a bit gender sensitive, and there was a lot of gender inequality, but also women are much affected, I can say, than man in climate change. And these were some of the challenges that we encountered. But also through the Right Way Forward that we had together, there are some successes. We will be able to strengthen the local government authority environmental committees. So we have the central government that is being led as a country at large, but also have the local government authorities that set by rules, laws that govern the local government authorities. So through that, we've been able to strengthen the environmental committees. So into these LGAs, the environmental committees. So through our trainings and capacitating them, we've been able to strengthen their capacity, but also through that, they've been able to enact by laws. Laws were being made. Let's say if you cut down trees, there are fines that are really high. That's through that really reduce the number of deforestation across the island, but also planting more than 220,000 mangrove tree on the island, but also supported entrepreneurship, but also promoted gender equality. Coming to another part of the partnership that we had with UNA Sweden, it was the Kesho Yetu Climate Bootcamp, and this was part of the Kesho Yetu Mazingira Yetu. Kesho Yetu Mazingira Yetu is a Swahili word for our future, our environment. So we look onto the younger generation as today it's the generation, but tomorrow they'll be the one who affected. And they'll not just be affected tomorrow, but they're being affected from today. And we've been able to have this program whereby it says Kesho Yetu Mazingira Yetu, our future, our environment, whereby we had this boot camp. And the goal of the boot camp was to see how we foster youth-led climate innovation. Young people across Tanzania, but also Africa and the world at large, have a lot of innovative ideas on how they can be able to tackle climate change. So they came up with innovative ideas on how to tackle climate change. We had them for 5 days on a boot camp. We had various people from Irish Embassy, Save the Children, Irish University, whereby giving them technical skills, but also banks like CRDB banks to see how now they can be able to support their ideas, their prototypes on how they can combat climate change. So the training focused on climate concept, disaster risk reduction, because there are some young people who come with disaster early warning systems to predict when rains are coming, but also to inform and give early warning to farmers, but also communities at large. So how could we be able to enhance them onto that part, but also design thinking, but also issues around climate finances, but also intellectual properties, to see how now they can be able to register their ideas and take their prototype further and develop them further, but also issues around presentation and pitching skills to take the idea further. These are young people who are already doing work into climate change. So now we brought them together on a boot camp to develop the ideas and to see how do they go to tackle climate change. So through that, we saw that there was enhanced knowledge and networks among young leaders in climate change, but also we empowered climate ambassadors with a 50% female participation. Onto this bootcamp to ensure that there is gender equality, to ensure that both male and female young people are being equally presented, and we ensure that also women are not left behind. So we ensure that young people, but also young female, are much into this. But also we could not reach as many young people as we could. We wish we could do that, but due to resource constraint, we could not do that. So through that, we had a social media campaign sharing the information on what's going on, and we've been able to reach more than 1 million young people. Coming again to work with young people, we usually commemorate the World Environment Day by having an outreach program, having a tree planting session with young people. And through this, we see that there was increased youth urgency in climate resilience, but also innovation. And to that part, output number 1, we saw that with students positive steps toward climate resilience, whereby we saw that during the World Environment Day 2024, we conducted it in Arusha, whereby we had a tree planting activities with students in Arusha. This is all Turoto Secondary Schools in Arusha. It's a Maasai village. It's a Maasai school, whereby it's also one of the marginalized groups that are not much rich in terms of informations, but also a lot of opportunities. But we went to Turoto, which it's a very far place in Arusha, very marginalized place, but also a very remote place. But we need to make sure that we reach as many young people as we could. More than 300 students participated, faculty members, but also community members participated. We planted more than 250 native trees, but also we look much into the education. We had an outreach, we had a very good session with these young people, inspiring them to be climate ambassadors, and them now taking further from what they have learned, from what we have been able to inspire them to have a ripple effect to the community. But also, through the Mazingira Yetu, Kesho Yetu campaign, we again further did a lot of activities with young people to inspire young people to take action for climate resilience. We had beach cleanup event, whereby we conducted environmental and beach cleanups events in various beaches across Dar es Salaam, whereby we gathered young people from schools, from university, to do these cleanup activities, again, march planting activities. We held climate discussion, we called them climate talks, whereby we had these talks in universities and schools, young people having dialogues, but also speaking on how they could be able to tackle and combat climate change, but how young people taking the lead and the role for them to be able to combat climate change. We had these essay competitions, whereby we gave out 2 rounds of climate resilience theme, whereby young people wrote essays on how they could be able to tackle climate change, and we selected winners, inspiring them, but also published the articles and the essays that they will write, but also inspire the greater generations and the greater audience at large. So been speak a bit about the work that we've been doing with UNA Sweden. It's a lot, but due to time, we thought of choosing those. But also now I want to see how do UNA Sweden projects complement climate resilience programs. At UNA Tanzania, we have other climate programs at place, but through UNA Sweden projects, which it's one of our longest partners, we've been able to learn a lot from them, but also synergize and complement to see how what we have learned from UNA Sweden projects, how do they complement other projects, but also the climate resilience department at large. So we have seen that there is integration across programs. The Right Way Forward project, which took place in Zanzibar, provided lessons for expanding ecosystem-based adaptation. And we have been applying this in Dodoma, whereby we have our proper climate resilience program, whereby we're building climate resilience capacity to the highly affected community of Dodoma. So through the Right Way Forward, we have seen that we've been able to expand the ecosystem-based adaptation, but also the youth-focused activities has been able to inspire initiative in the climate resilience department. We have broader work into young people in Tanzania, but into organization. So through the work that we're doing in climate change with young people into UNA Sweden project, we have seen that it has been able to inspire young people, but also other departments, but also other projects under the department. But also the tree planting and the environmental clubs, it has been really impactful. So in the environmental club, it has not only been with young people and students. So in the DOMA, into the climate resilience project that we have there, we also have these groups of farmers who come together and learn. And it's a thing that we've been able to learn through the engagement with UNA Sweden, having these clubs. But now these clubs are not with young people, with farmers. So the farmers comes and learn in terms of the climate smart agriculture work. And so they meet usually monthly, learning on what they can do in terms of climate change. And the key synergies we have seen, the shared focus on community-led solution and sustainability. From what we have learned in Pemba, these communities knows a lot. They have their own traditional ways to adapt to climate change. Now combining all of these two and having community-led solutions brings sustainability to it. But also women empowerment through alternative livelihood, by diversifying not only women but community at large, diversifying livelihood. It's really key, as many people in Tanzania depend into agriculture, but we've been highly affected by climate change, and but also diversifying now the income, not only depending on agriculture, but also depending on other sources of livelihood. It's really key. But also leveraging into youth networks for advocacy and local actions. There are a lot of future opportunities from the boot camp. These young people have now taken their prototypes, their ideas further. We have seen that we still need to engage young people into that part, but also we need to apply more of the Mazingira Yetu Kesho Yetu campaign experience to amplify the outreaches. We have done it into some of the regions. Tanzania has 30 regions. We have done it into 6 regions, but it has been highly successful into these 6 regions, and there is a need to expand it further. Coming again to future outlooks, challenges again are already there in terms of the collaborations ending. Resource constraint for the ongoing initiative. It's really challenges, but also there is a need to alternative funding and partnership. Some partnership are ending this year. We need to find ways to have alternative funding so that we can ensure that all of this good work that we're doing keeps going further. But also we have an opportunity to build into the legacy of the programs with local and international allies like you, but also local allies here in the country, to see how we'll be able to work with young people, but also donors in the country, but also other actors in the country, from the government, CSOs, private sectors, on how we can be able to work together. But we need to further enhance youth engagement into climate spaces and innovation. Tanzania has a bigger population, and more than 70% of the country population is young people. We need to enhance youth engagement to climate innovation. But also the COP of COP 2019, COP of finances is we have just concluded it last month, but now there is a lot of areas that have been adapted onto COP 29. But how now do we see and adapt into that? But also the Summit of the Future has just concluded in September in New York. Countries have adopted the Pact of the Future, and whereby there is high urgency in terms of countries, member states of the United Nations, to commit themselves into the existing climate frameworks and negotiations that have already been there. So this is opportunities that are already there, and this is the bit of the work that we've been doing with UNA Sweden. So yeah, thank you for now. Then we'll be having much of the conversations and questions on the later part. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ali, and a big applause for your amazing work during these years. It's really stunning to see all these results. From less than 10 years, if I understand it well. We started collaborating with you in 2017. Is that right? Yeah. So that's really fantastic. We will, as you said, we will save the questions until we have also heard Crystal tell us about the work done in Albania. So I will give the floor to you, Crystal. And I don't know if you want to share some pictures or if you only just want to tell us about the work that you are doing and have been doing the last years.
Thank you. I can share a presentation on the work that UNA Albania has been doing related to climate. Before that, if you would like, I can also add a little bit more about where Albania stands in terms of like climate-related policy and climate adaptation and mitigation. So while Albania is part of the Paris Agreement and has pledged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 20 to 30% by 2030, there has been some stagnation in that respect. And of course, then as an inspiring EU candidate country, Albania also is aligning its environmental and climate policies with the EU Green Deal. So we're expecting that that will help in advancing climate-related policymaking in the country. And we're also in the process of developing and revising the National Adaptation Plan, or NAPS as it's called. And I've just also returned from COP29, where there was a big bulk of the conversation around that. So I'm happy to hear that Albania is making some strides in that direction. As I mentioned earlier, Albania has this hydropower dominance, with over 90% of electricity being produced from hydropower activities. But there are some ongoing plans and projects to diversify renewable energy sources, to incorporate as well wind energy and solar-powered energy as well, particularly along the coastal areas. And as for the wind energy projects, also in the mountainous regions. We also have a few reforestation programs, and I think that there has been a revision of the forest lawn policy to incorporate more sustainable forestry practices that would help both reduce carbon emissions and preserve biodiversity. And another good thing that is happening and is in the process is increasing or expanding the marine protected area. So the expansion has come to cover the Karaburun Sazan area, marine area as well, which was intended to conserve marine biology and build the resilience of this ecosystem in the face of adverse climate impacts and changes. I mentioned a bit earlier about the agriculture and water resource management and how that is also very vulnerable, and seeing as how that is a big industry for us that we're largely reliant on. The Ministry for Environment and Tourism is also applying for agriculture is also applying a few programs to revise the crop growing schedules and plans, and shifting more towards more drought resilient crops. So that is more so to give you a brief overview, because UNA Albania does not specifically focus on climate-related work in terms of direct policy work, for example, or intervening in agriculture, renewable energy sources, any of that part of the industry, but would do a lot of work in advocacy, capacity building, and youth awareness raising. And I'm giving you this overview as well because I was this year part of the COP29 Albanian national delegation through this program that UNA conducts and is now proudly hoping to expand. So I will now share a presentation to focus a little bit more on the work that UNA Albania does.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry. Okay. Can you see? Is this fine?
Can you try to get only the?
I'll try to get this to present.
Yeah, exactly. A slideshow
Presenting
from the beginning.
Maybe
Perhaps.
Would this work? I'm trying to do this so we can immediately start presenting. It's
Yeah,
loading.
sometimes is it that you're pressing present, but it won't show up?
Exactly.
Yeah. Sometimes it helps to save it as a PDF.
Okay.
Oh,
No, it's
right.
fine. Perfect.
There we go. Okay, great.
Great.
I can just focus on this here. Okay, so United Nations Association Albania climate-related work. I'm going to be covering a little bit of what UNA Albania does in itself, our mission and vision, and then a brief overview of the projects just to understand the trajectory of the work that we do, especially with youth as well, and how we've channeled that into climate-related work as well. And I will focus a little bit more on two of our most recent initiatives, as well as ending with a note on hopes for the future and how we're looking to expand on this. The first, for those of you that may not know the work that we do in the mission that we have, the United Nations Association of Albania aspires for a society guided by the principles of peace, democracy, and sustainability. And as we've come to understand, especially in the recent years, climate resilience to climate lies in the middle of all of those three and intersects with all of those three and is integral to social cohesion, security, as well as living a sustainable future for all communities. And our mission is to work in partnerships to enhance informed policymaking, as well as incentivize a participatory society and an engaged youth. And in light of that, we also do work to advance the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. So what are we aspiring for? And we've been working towards this. And I could say that we've established ourselves as a key actor in fostering civic engagement for sustainable development, especially among the younger population of Albania. And we've also become a stakeholder in Albania's policy deliberations, more so currently in inclusion and accessibility in the arts and culture, but also we're expanding, as I said, towards more climate-related policy advocacy. And third, we are also a key promoter of youth participation and representation at both local, national, and international levels. And this is also exhibited by our long-standing project, the United Nations Youth Delegates program to the UN General Assembly, but also over the past 2 years to COP29. So a brief overview of UNA's projects. We have Blueprint, the youth chapter, which is a big driver of advocacy work and also youth awareness raising. And they have this whole range of different activities that they hold regularly on a regular basis. A lot of them have been increasingly focusing on climate-related topics and environmental issues in Albania, but also beyond, and bringing global issues closer to the local Albanian youth. But they also do a whole range of different activities covering various aspects of the SDGs, whether it's education, sexual education, gender equality, and as I mentioned, also, of course, the aspects related to the environment. Amplify is our platform for youth knowledge and advocacy, which has incorporated young people. It has at its goal to incorporate young people as key drivers of public discourse and narratives and proposers of policies. And we're looking to expand that, as I mentioned, towards more climate-focused research as well. Over the past year, we focused on on energy, sustainable development, and youth participation, including the possibility of establishing a model of sustainable tourism in Albania, seeing as how over the past couple of years, Albania's tourism has grown extensively. And one of the policy briefs that was produced by youth was focusing specifically on this. The other one was focusing on the possibility of establishing a wealth sovereign fund, which would also contribute to the economic sustainability of the country in the future. The Art Nexus and Annex projects, I'm not going to focus too much on that, but that is a key pillar of us that covers inclusion and accessibility in the arts and culture, and we're driving a lot of policy advocacy in that aspect. Youth, peace, and security is also the UN Security Council Resolution 2250 on the YPS agenda. We are one of the piloting partners for localizing and operationalizing this agenda in Albania, and we've been covering various cross-cutting themes from education to technology to climate, and how climate and ecological insecurity feeds into overall destabilization of regions and countries and communities, and how that is a challenge in establishing long-lasting peace. The MUN Albania initiative is something that we're very proud of as well. Then we've done amazing work with UNA Sweden, and we've managed to increase our outreach to an international participation and audience as well, hosting for the third year in a row, I think, a model UN in Albania with the participation of Swedish students as well, but also students from the Western Balkans region and beyond from Europe. And this year we had the pleasure, but I will share more about that, we had the pleasure of piloting the first model COP, so with a specific focus on the COP format and climate negotiations, which was very untraditional and new to the Albanian students, I would say, and young people, but also very much so for other nationalities that were represented at this initiative. It was a new thing for them. Electionville has this similar notion of stimulating local governance and increasing youth capacities in understanding democracy, in negotiating from the standpoint of a local party. And then the United Nations Youth Delegates Program, which I already mentioned, for the 6th year, we've been incorporating 2 young people in the national delegation of Albania to the United Nations General Assembly in New York, and for the past 2 years to COP as well, so COP 28 and COP 29. So zooming in on more specific climate work, what I already mentioned, the model COP, for this year, we wanted to focus a little bit more on increasing youth capacities in understanding climate-related issues and understanding climate change, but also how countries' different positions and interests play a role in climate negotiations, and then further on, how climate policies are implemented in country and how those are related to the work that is done on a multilateral level, so at COP29. It was challenging in many ways because it was new to us to organize it, but it's also something that is quite niche and technical as well. So COP is a very technical format, and of course, climate spans over so many different issues. And this year's COP, which was focused on finance, was even tougher for younger people to grasp. But Eva was also part of UNA Sweden was also present here, so Teresa could also share more about how their experience was participating in Albania at this piloting phase of the project. It was incredible, I think, to see that young people dove right into writing position papers from countries that they were randomly assigned, that they did not specifically have any prior knowledge about, but then they had to go on and defend that country's interests, which is challenging in and of itself, even if you're doing it from the standpoint of the country that you are from, but let alone when you're doing it from maybe a context, even political, economic context that you're not familiar with. And that is also at the core of the COP experience, because you have to be reconciling with the difference between your position and your interests. You might be wanting to get at something else, but you have to hold certain positions. And that shows a lot more about the multilateral sphere and the diplomacy that is at play, and goes beyond the local initiatives or what our young, for example, like our youth chapter might have been used to when it comes to advocating for climate change. You go beyond the grassroots level to thinking from an institutional perspective. So the other aspect of our climate-related work was participation of young negotiators at COP28 and COP29, and I will go to this slide. So we've been able to do this in partnership with the Ministry of Tourism and Environment and also the Youth Negotiators Academy. The Youth Negotiators Academy works through the Climate Youth Negotiators Program, and UNITAR, which is the United Nations training entity for training and research. They collectively train young people from all over the world to become apt at climate negotiations, and this has this is done through an intensive training program of 5 months with online modules, exchanges with experts in the field, also conversations with previous negotiators who have been to previous COPs. And this is meant to increase your capacities not only on a knowledge level, so to better understand climate and climate on the global scene, but also to increase your negotiation skills. And this is done through also simulation of climate negotiation trainings through different formats, but also through more specifically catered negotiation tracks. So you would get training for the negotiation track that you would actually be following in real life at COP, whether that was action for climate empowerment or climate finance, adaptation, or mitigation. This also, sorry.
No.
Oh, sorry, I thought there was a question. And this also, because it was in partnership with the Ministry of Environment and Tourism to be able to include these 2 young people as part of the national delegation to go to COP and to follow negotiations as one of the accredited official party members. This also meant that we would have to liaise a lot with the ministry and also become acquainted with national policies and national priorities and present them at different side events or in the negotiation rooms at COP. I already covered a bit of the model COP and how that's important for young people to become more capable of understanding climate from different angles and not just from the activist angle, and to bridge this gap between young people as the receivers of narratives and discourses to the shapers of these discourses, and to people who are capable of intervening and proposing concrete policy action, as well as understanding thorough, complex issues. So to wrap up with a bit of a takeaway from my personal experience at COP29 is that Albania is in the process, as I said, has developed a national adaptation plan and is in the process of revising it to incorporate a more thorough framework of adaptation strategies on a national level. But implementation of climate policies remains inconsistent, and this is because of both the limited resources and institutional capacity, but also a lack of prioritization in certain industries, and the need to integrate climate measures and climate mainstreaming across different sectors and across the ministries. So there is stronger coordination amongst all the actors that can play a role in devising adaptations and mitigation strategies for the whole country. This would also mean that there is clearer action plans on the national level, but also on the local level, so that local authorities and municipalities have a clearer pathway of introducing climate resilient infrastructure and climate resilient policymaking. Right, so our hopes for the future, because our involvement in climate-related work, let me rephrase that. We have been involved in climate-related work previously, more so on a tangential level. We've touched on climate as a cross-cutting theme across many of the activities that we do, whether that was through through our youth chapter or as part of our youth peace and security activities such as the Peace Week, but it was never targeted directly as a key pillar or key focus of the organization's work. And over the past few years, with the support of UNA Sweden as well, we've had the chance of upscaling that. And this year's trial at the Model COP proving to be a success and a very interesting initiative that we want to follow up with, and we want to upscale and continue to establish this as a practice of UNA Albania that we do on an annual basis. We also want to further establish the participation of young negotiators at COP as a key program of the organization. And to that end, we're signing a memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Environment and Tourism to formalize the inclusion of young people in the national delegation. And we want to follow up on the work that has been done at COP and our understanding, our knowledge, and also our new partnerships, whether that is with UN agencies or local bodies and local NGOs working on climate. We want to advance climate-related policy advocacy and perhaps streamline that into our other operations so that they're better matched and they both feed into one another. And
I think you have to wrap up now, please,
yes,
because we have to go on in the program.
Of course.
Thank you.
And lastly, a goal of ours would also be enhancing regional cooperation in climate policy and advocacy. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Crystal. That's also an amazing amount of work that you